A reading from 2 Chronicles, chapter 21. Jehoshaphat died and was buried in the royal tombs in David's city, and his son Jehoram succeeded him as king. Jehoram, son of King Jehoshaphat of Judah, had 6 brothers: Azariah, Jehiel, Zechariah, Azariahu, Michael, and Shephatiah. Their father gave them large amounts of gold, silver, and other valuable possessions, and placed each one in charge of one of the fortified cities of Judah. But because Jehoram was the oldest, Jehoshaphat made him his successor. When Jehoram was in firm control of the kingdom, he had all his brothers killed, and also some Israelite officials. Jehoram became king at the age of 32, and he ruled in Jerusalem for 8 years. He followed the wicked example of King Ahab and the other kings of Israel because he had married one of Ahab's daughters. He sinned against the Lord, but the Lord was not willing to destroy the dynasty of David because he had made a covenant with David and promised that his descendants would always continue to rule. During Jehoram's reign, Edom revolted against Judah and became an independent kingdom. So Jehoram and his officers set out with chariots and invaded Edom. There, the Edomite army surrounded them, but during the night, they managed to break out and escape. Edom has been independent of Judah ever since. During this same period, the city of Libnah also revolted because Jehoram had abandoned the Lord, the God of his ancestors. He even built pagan places of worship in the Judean highlands and led the people of Judah and Jerusalem to sin against the Lord. The prophet Elijah sent Jehoram a letter which read as follows: "The Lord, the God of your ancestor David, condemns you because you did not follow the example of your father, King Jehoshaphat, or that of your grandfather, King Asa. Instead, you have followed the example of the kings of Israel and have led the people of Judah and Jerusalem into being unfaithful to God, just as Ahab and his successors led Israel into unfaithfulness. You even murdered your brothers, who were better men than you are. As a result, the Lord will severely punish your people, your children, and your wives, and will destroy your possessions. You yourself will suffer a painful intestinal disease that will grow worse day by day." Some Philistines and Arabs lived near where some Ethiopians had settled along the coast. The Lord caused them to go to war against Jehoram. They invaded Judah, looted the royal palace, and carried off as prisoners all the king's wives and sons except Ahaziah, his youngest son. Then, after all this, the Lord brought on the king a painful disease of the intestines. For almost 2 years, it grew steadily worse, until finally the king died in agony. His subjects did not light a bonfire in mourning for him, as had been done for his ancestors. Jehoram had become king at the age of 32 and had ruled in Jerusalem for 8 years. Nobody was sorry when he died. They buried him in David's city, but not in the royal tombs. The word of the Lord. A reading from 2 Chronicles chapter 22. Some Arabs had led a raid and killed all of King Jehoram's sons, except Ahaziah the youngest. So now the people of Jerusalem made Ahaziah king as his father's successor. Ahaziah became king at the age of 22, and he ruled in Jerusalem for 1 year. Ahaziah also followed the example of King Ahab's family, since his mother Athaliah, the daughter of King Ahab and granddaughter of King Omri of Israel, gave him advice that led him into evil. He sinned against the Lord because after his father's death, other members of King Ahab's family became his advisors and they led to his downfall. Following their advice, he joined King Joram of Israel in a war against King Hazael of Syria. The armies clashed at Ramoth in Gilead, and Joram was wounded in battle. He returned to the city of Jezreel to recover from his wounds, and Ahaziah went there to visit him. God used this visit to Joram to bring about Ahaziah's downfall. While Ahaziah was there, he and Joram were confronted by a man named Jehu, son of Nimshi, whom the Lord had chosen to destroy the dynasty of Ahab. As Jehu was carrying out God's sentence on the dynasty, he came across a group made up of Judean leaders and of Ahaziah's nephews that had accompanied Ahaziah on his visit. Jehu killed them all. A search was made for Ahaziah, and he was found hiding in Samaria. They took him to Jehu and put him to death. But they did bury his body out of respect for his grandfather, King Jehoshaphat, who had done all he could to serve the Lord. No member of Ahaziah's family was left who could rule the kingdom. As soon as King Ahaziah's mother, Athaliah, learned of her son's murder, she gave orders for all the members of the royal family of Judah to be killed. Ahaziah had a half-sister, Jehosheba, who was married to a priest named Jehoiada. She secretly rescued one of Ahaziah's sons, Joash, took him away from the other princes who were about to be murdered, and hid him and a nurse in a bedroom at the temple. By keeping him hidden, she saved him from death at the hands of Athaliah. For 6 years, he remained there in hiding, while Athaliah ruled as queen. The word of the Lord.